For more than 40,000 years, a secret remained hidden inside Vanguard Cave on the windswept coast of Gibraltar. Behind a wall of tightly packed sand, untouched by time, lay a chamber no human eyes had seen since the age of the Neanderthals. It was not blocked by a cave-in, nor sealed by natural forces. Archaeologists would eventually discover that the barrier had been deliberately constructed. Someone had placed that sand there, compacted it tightly, and closed off whatever lay beyond. For 9 painstaking years, researchers led by Professor Clive Finlayson excavated the deepest reaches of the cave. Progress was painfully slow. Every layer of sediment was carefully removed, screened, and documented. Centimeter by centimeter, the team worked through thousands of years of history. Then, deep inside the cave system, they encountered something unexpected. A dense wall of compacted sand stood in their path. Geological analysis revealed that it had remained undisturbed for at least 40,000 years. This was not a natural deposit. It had been placed there intentionally. When the final section was removed, a hidden chamber emerged from the darkness. The room stretched roughly 13 meters into the rock and had remained completely sealed since long before the rise of civilization. The air inside was stale and motionless. Dust drifted through a space that had not felt disturbance since the final generations of Neanderthals walked the earth. Archaeologists described the atmosphere as eerie, almost unnatural. The chamber was silent in a way that seemed impossible, as though time itself had stopped within its walls. What they discovered inside challenged nearly everything previously believed about Neanderthals. The first thing investigators noticed was the stone itself. Deep grooves scarred the limestone walls. These were not random scratches. They were powerful gouges carved into solid rock with tremendous force. Long parallel marks crossed the surfaces repeatedly, concentrated in specific areas. Whatever had created them had clawed at the walls over and over again. More disturbing still, every mark appeared to originate from within the chamber. Something trapped inside had been trying desperately to get out. Then came the bones. Scattered throughout the chamber were remains belonging to animals that should never have occupied the same space. Researchers identified lynx, spotted hyena, and griffon vulture bones among the discoveries. In nature, these predators do not coexist peacefully. Hyenas and lynx compete for territory and resources, while griffon vultures avoid enclosed underground spaces entirely. Yet here their remains lay together in a sealed room deep within a cliffside cave. The evidence suggested deliberate transport. Neanderthals had likely carried these animals, or parts of them, into the chamber. The reasons remain uncertain. Some researchers believe the remains were connected to ritual behavior. Others suspect they were collected for feathers, pelts, bones, or symbolic purposes unrelated to food. Whatever the explanation, the placement was intentional. These animals did not arrive here by accident. The mystery deepened when archaeologists reached the very back of the chamber. There, resting in complete darkness, was a single whelk shell. At first glance it seemed insignificant. Yet its location transformed it into one of the most important discoveries in the cave. Whelks are sea snails that live along the Mediterranean coast. They do not travel inland. They certainly do not place themselves deep inside sealed cave chambers. Someone had carried that shell from the shoreline, transported it into the cave, passed through the darkness, and deliberately positioned it at the furthest point from the entrance. Professor Finlayson stated the conclusion plainly. A Neanderthal had placed it there. Similar shells found at other sites contain traces of red ochre, a pigment used for decoration and symbolic expression. Their shape makes them ideal containers for mixing and storing color. If this shell served the same purpose, then it represents far more than a simple object. It becomes evidence of creativity, symbolism, and artistic behavior. For decades, many scientists argued that symbolic thought separated modern humans from Neanderthals. Yet here was evidence suggesting Neanderthals collected pigments, carried decorative objects, and attached meaning to items that served no survival purpose. Further excavation revealed even more astonishing discoveries. Beneath the sealed chamber, archaeologists uncovered evidence of sophisticated engineering dating back roughly 60,000 years. They found a carefully constructed hearth unlike an ordinary fire pit. This feature contained multiple channels designed to restrict oxygen flow during heating. Analysis showed that it had been used to manufacture tar through a process now known as pyrolysis. By heating plant material under controlled conditions, Neanderthals extracted sticky resin that could be used as a powerful adhesive. This tar allowed stone tools to be attached securely to wooden shafts, creating composite weapons. The structure's design suggested repeated experimentation and refinement. It was not a lucky accident. The builders understood how to control temperature, airflow, and material properties to achieve reliable results. Even more remarkable, they adapted the process using local Mediterranean plants rather than simply copying methods seen elsewhere. Chemical testing revealed consistent tar production over multiple episodes, indicating standardized manufacturing rather than isolated experimentation. This level of technical understanding contradicted the outdated image of Neanderthals as primitive and incapable of advanced thought. Nearby, inside another section of Gibraltar's cave system, researchers discovered a mysterious engraving carved directly into bedrock. Known as the Gorham's Cave engraving, it consisted of intersecting lines forming a deliberate geometric pattern. Detailed analysis demonstrated that creating it required at least 54 separate tool strokes. Experimental archaeology showed that the design was planned in advance rather than produced accidentally. The maker had a clear image in mind before beginning. More importantly, the engraving was located far beyond the reach of natural sunlight. Whoever created it worked in near-total darkness, likely using artificial illumination. This single discovery challenged one of the oldest assumptions in human evolution. Abstract symbolic expression was long considered uniquely human. Yet the engraving predates the arrival of modern humans in the region. A Neanderthal created it. Whether it represented art, communication, ritual, or something else entirely remains unknown. But its existence proves intentional abstract thinking. The evidence becomes even harder to dismiss when examining Neanderthal burial sites across Europe and the Middle East. At Shanidar Cave in Iraq, researchers uncovered a burial approximately 60,000 years old surrounded by pollen from multiple flowering plants. The flowers had been deliberately placed with the body. The deceased individual was arranged carefully, positioned within a prepared grave rather than abandoned where death occurred. Similar discoveries emerged from sites in France, where adults and children were buried together in organized groupings. In several locations, red ochre was applied directly to human remains. Large animal bones appeared beside the dead as possible offerings. These practices served no practical purpose. They reflected symbolism, memory, grief, and perhaps belief in an existence beyond death. Such behavior requires imagination. It requires the ability to think about concepts that cannot be seen or touched. It requires minds capable of understanding mortality and assigning meaning to loss. All of this raises a difficult question. If Neanderthals created art, engineered tools, produced adhesives, buried their dead, and thought symbolically, why did they disappear? The answer may lie in a combination of environmental change and competition. By around 40,000 years ago, modern humans had spread throughout Europe. Wherever they arrived, Neanderthal populations eventually vanished. Genetic evidence confirms interaction between the two groups. Today, most non-African humans carry between 1 and 4% Neanderthal DNA. The two species met, interacted, and had children together. Yet only one survived as a distinct population. Rising sea levels further compressed Neanderthal habitats, particularly in Gibraltar. The coastal plains they depended upon slowly disappeared beneath advancing waters. Their territory shrank. Resources became scarcer. Pressure increased from every direction. The last Neanderthals may have survived on this narrow stretch of coastline longer than anywhere else on Earth. Then, gradually, they were gone. But the chamber inside Vanguard Cave remained, sealed away from history, hidden through the rise of kingdoms, empires, and modern civilization. When archaeologists finally opened it, they uncovered more than bones and artifacts. They uncovered evidence of a people far more intelligent, creative, and complex than generations of textbooks ever allowed. The claw marks, the shell, the engineer hearth, the engraving, and the burials all point toward the same conclusion. Neanderthals were not failed humans. They were another kind of human altogether. And somewhere in the darkness of that sealed chamber, preserved for 40 millennia,